Furious MEPs have hit out amid fears they will be bounced into green-lighting a Brexit trade and security deal in a matter of weeks. The European Parliament now expects to be forced to hold a last-gasp voting session on the future relationship agreement on December 28. Senior MEPs have voiced frustration at the lack of time they will be given to properly scrutinise the legal texts, with talks expected to run into December. Bernd Lange, the EU Parliament's trade chief, fumed, "It's already 5 past midnight. We need a text, otherwise ratification and democratic scrutiny by the European Parliament will be a farce. The gambling of Boris Johnson has brought us where are now. We won't pay the price for that." With little time to translate the legal text into the bloc's 24 official languages, they fear they will be made to make a verdict based on an English-only version. Kati Piri, a member of the EU Parliament's Brexit Committee, said the negotiations are now running a month behind schedule. The Dutch MEP said, "As you can imagine, the anxiety and the stress is starting to build up in the European Parliament. We had made several timelines on how to ratify such an important deal. The last deadline for us to have proper democratic scrutiny was the end of October. If you compare it to all the other trade deals we've struck as the EU, this is the shortest time period we ever had to ratify a deal." Ms. Piri insisted it would be politically toxic for the EU Parliament to be left out of the bloc's ratification process, with EU 27 leaders still to consent to any agreement. She said, "Even if it would be possible, it's clearly not something that we would politically want to do, and some MEPs expect a series of concessions to be made by the EU side in order to get any deal across the line." Brussels sources have said there will most likely be a trade-off between the bloc's demands for common standards and reduced access to Britain's coastal waters. Christoph Hansen, another member of the EU Parliament's Brexit Committee, said the bloc would have to be prepared to meet Boris Johnson's fisheries demands in order to clinch an agreement. The Luxembourgish MEP said, "There will be compromises to be made on fisheries. The status quo, that is somewhere we're not going to land." Meanwhile, Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin has signalled the Brexit trade deal could be wrapped up as early as this week. On a visit to Dublin Port, he said, "President Ursula von der Leyen did say to the EU leaders last Thursday night that there are texts now on all areas. I would be hopeful that by the end of this week we could see the outline of a deal. That remains to be seen. It's down to political will. One must remain hopeful that a deal can be arrived at." The European Commission also denied reports of a temporary, emergency Brexit deal, to buy more times for talks and ratification after the end of the transition period.